our salaries back then was 16,000 rupees a month.
Okay.
So we
Decent. कहीं design कहीं change interchange तो नहीं हो जाएगा
So
Zara
there
में?
are agreements. There are agreements in place. We've not faced that issue.
We see the Hulk in Zara.
Great progress then.
Sometimes in the hunt to deliver something cool to grow fast, we might forget the essence of running a good business, selling a great quality product and providing a fantastic service experience. Getting back to these basics becomes even more important as the narrative shifts from pure growth to profitability. So, if your startup is caught in the twilight zone and you're wondering, how can I boldly go where maybe someone has gone before? Well, you have beamed yourself into the right place. Welcome to Crafting Bharat, a startup guide powered by AWS. I'm your host, Gautam Srinivasan. With me today is a founder who has managed to create a popular brand out of selling popular culture. A hit with Young India, his company is expanding its reach faster than a speeding bullet. Get ready to take some notes from our guest for today. Please welcome Aditya Sharma, co-founder at The Soul Store. Aditya, great to have you on Crafting Bharat.
Thank you so much for having me. I think I've seen your interviews with such esteemed people, so I'm very excited to be a part of this.
All right, let's see if we can de-esteem this conversation. I've got my handy-dandy buzzer right here for that. All right, let's flex some mental muscles and understand how to win friends and influence people while running a startup. It's time for our first segment called The Incubator. All right, setting phasers to stun. Let's start your story around pop culture. You and your co-founders love pop culture, from Star Wars to Marvel to anime to sports, a wide variety of interests. Right. And that passion translated into starting a fashion D2C brand, although you guys weren't fashion savvy. So take us through this roller coaster ride of how the Soul Store began for all of you, and how confident were you of a sort of a product market fit, considering, it was still early days for this market in India.
So we're four of us actually, and 3 engineers and 1 lawyer. After post-engineering, we took up a finance job. I remember we were eating
2 years, right, for you?
Yes, you're right. 1.5 to be precise.
Achha,
so
6 months for
6 months for research.
For research.
Correct. Okay. So we were eating sepuri in the college canteen and in the office canteen, and we decided that, hey, we love pop culture, and back in the day, Netflix and Amazon Prime weren't there. And we were all watching Friends and Big Bang Theory and, all the likes. So the only way to get official merchandise in India was either to call up a relative and be like, hey, can you please get it when you come down, or to buy fakes from the streets. So we saw that gap. We saw that there was definitely a demand because people like us wanted it. And also there is very low barrier to entry to start an apparel brand in India. Because, let's say if I have a very low capital, I can just go and be like, hey, I need t-shirts. And there are a lot of people in Bombay who would make basic quality t-shirts for you. So we clubbed both these things. Our salaries back then was 16,000 rupees a month.
Okay.
So
decent.
So we took our savings. We put in each 1.5 lakh rupees, and we invested that into the business. And since the last 11 years now, that's the only capital we've infused in the business.
Now we come to the funding part, right? Because you were bootstrapped for 5 years, saw a profitable phase for 6 years. But external funding starts pouring. It's the typical Hindi movie scene, right? Ki small town star becomes big time superstar, and then there's love, there's adulation, and then suddenly, koi baat karo mujhse, main hi superstar hoon. That phase comes in. So now you adopted an omni-channel approach for maximum reach. You floated high discounts, expensive hiring, marketing budget to went up. All these result in a high cash burn, and that's causing substantial losses in FY22 despite a 2x in operating revenue. Right. So I'm presuming there would have been some sort of a peer pressure from the ecosystem that you work with, right? If your competitors are spending like crazy, they're trying to carve that niche, somewhere that pressure will also come on you. So take us through how you dealt with that pressure and how the urge to grow fast. Of course, that exists with anyone. How do you dealt with this phase?
Right. So, all of us, right, our strength was to run the business very frugally. and take it, like increase the revenue and then make sure that the expenses are in control.
अच्छा, मतलब ऑफिस में झाड़ू आप ही मार देते हो?
Actually मारा हुआ है खुद से, like everything. So right from printing out the orders, the invoices, taking customer calls, going and standing at the vendors of unit, and then picking up the gonies and goods and everything. So the reason I think, one of the reasons I think I would attribute the fact that we've come to this stage is because we've done everything ourselves. So there is no concept of like, hey, this takes X amount of time and I have no idea about it because I've done it myself at some point. So coming back to your question, right? I think for us, when we raised the first round of funding, what happened is that, there was, I wouldn't call it pressure, but I think this whole scenario where we have a lot of cash in the bank, let's increase the marketing spend, increase the revenue. We'll burn cash in the short term, but eventually this will help us in the longer run. So what we did, two things with the cash. One is we increased the marketing and branding spends, and we also hired very aggressively because we're like, hey, we're planning for a lot of growth, so we need to basically have that team in place. In short, what would have taken 5 years, we wanted to do it in 2 years. We realized that doesn't work for us. We made this mistake twice every time we raised a new round of funding. But now I think after all of that, we've established that the business will take its time to grow. We need to make sure that it's not burning cash. It has to be profitable. And at the same time, if the product is good, your success is going to be a little delayed, but it'll come for sure.
Well, that's your bazinga moment in business.
Yes,
कि एक बार we have burnt our hands, we are not going to repeat the same mistakes again. अभी थोड़ा business वाली hardcore बातें करते हैं. The sold store does not manufacture, but it gets production sourced in bulk from various vendors across India. What's your view on the apparel manufacturing space? Because there's the whole make in India, effect which is coming forth in this sector. Because your designs are in-house, so production bhi in-house kar lo, end-to-end sab kar lo, your margins will improve. What's your thought on these two questions?
Right. So we used to manufacture actually.
Oh, really?
Right. Okay. So I'll just give you a little more detail on this particular aspect, right? So when we were much smaller, it was very difficult for me to, source the right quality and source it in a particular lead time. So typically a t-shirt, let's say if I place an order today, it takes about 90 days to get it in-house. Okay. So that's a lot of lead time for a startup, right? Okay. So
is there specs given, let's say if you're working with brands and you're licensing this thing, merchandise, right. They give you specs ki cloth quality has to be like this and so
right.
on and
so they don't give that, but they do want to see every sample before you make it.
So they'll see the final product before they give the...
You're right. So they will see every product, they will approve every design. So what happened is that they give you a style guide, which basically has, let's say, guidelines on how to design and what is allowed, what is not allowed, right? And we would push the edge like every single time because you want to do something different than what was already existing in the world, right? So so every design that we make goes to the US for approval, then they reply, and then once the design is approved, we make the product, the sample is sent to them. Only after they approve is when I can send it to production, right? Now after the approval, the production takes 90 days. Right.
So to be up and to be cool and current, there's a certain lag which you face.
Absolutely, right? Now, a lot of what we sell is based on how relevant things are. So let's say if a movie is coming out, I need to make sure that I have the merchandise for it. So because of this aspect, I decided to do manufacturing ourselves. And we set up a unit in Bhiwandi, which is close to Bombay. So at one point, basically last year, we used to make about 2 lakh garments a month in our own unit ourselves. But what happened is that there is this town called Tirupur, which is very close to Coimbatore, right? Now that is
हमारे गांव के पास है.
So that is actually like a big hub, and they are one of the largest exporters of garments across the world. So we started producing our garments there. Now what they did is basically you can't really match their costs because smaller town, cheaper wages. They are vertically integrated. They've been doing this for like more than 50 years. So what we realized is that we can't compete with them for a cost. So same t-shirt that I was making myself in Bombay, even though it was my own unit, was turning out to be more expensive. And now that we're at this scale, right, I could demand quality, pricing, and lead times. So we shut the unit last year, and moved our production to Tirupur.
Which it was a common sense decision, or it's pure economics
And these are the same guys who make for your Zara's and Marks and Spencer's and H&M's of the world.
Kahin design, kahin interchange to nahi ho jayega Zara
there are agreements in place. We've not faced that issue.
We see the Hulk in Zara.
Great progress then.
Co-branded experience का ज़माना है यार आजकल. So we never know. Sold store X Zara brings to you the Marvel universe. That's true. All right. Now, I mean, this is the licensing part of it, the licensed part of it. आपका unlicensed part of the conversation पे आते हैं, because you've expanded your selection to casual wear, accessories, sneakers, because सब दिख रहा है मुझे. And you've grown your network of physical stores across, I think, 22 locations, and there is more
23
coming.
now, yes.
23 हो गया है ना? हाँ, so your counter is expanding. What was the reason for going physical, considering a majority of your revenue is still coming from the website and the app? I mean, is it, again, is it the pressure of being omni-channel, or is it a very thought-out approach that you're looking at?
Yeah, it was actually the opposite. You know, we've had a lot of investors who walked out of our meeting because we said that we want to try out offline. So I remember when we tried our first store in Bandra, we played out a worst case scenario and we're like, you know, if we make a loss, this is the cost of a billboard on Linking Road. We found out the cost and we're like, okay, this hoarding would be basically good enough for people to just see every day.
This is a real life A/B testing you're doing.
Yeah,
Ek location
exactly.
we'll go and we'll see what happens.
It was a 500 square feet store, but still a lot of money for us that time. This was about 4.5 years back. So we tried that with that store. It worked really well. We were just surprised at how well the store does.
All the cool kids are supposed to live in Bandra, right?
Correct, including me.
Real estate cost देखोगे तो देखते हैं. Okay.
Right.
हाँ,
So
please continue.
Right. So we started with that store, did really well. Unfortunately, COVID happened, and then we slowed down everything, and now we're at 23 stores. But there was no pressure from the investors. We wanted to give it a shot. As much as we like it, right, and we would love the audience to be online, but India still shops off.
They still want to see the fit and stuff.
Yes, you're right. And there is a lot of impulse buying. You know, you're walking down the street, especially Linking Road, which is a very shopping destination, right? So you do end up seeing the store, or you're walking with your kids and the kids just point out that, hey, I really love this and I want. So that at that point, a parent can't say no. So this is what really helped us, a mix of all of these
Emotional अत्याचार से पैसा बनाना.
Absolutely. And we've kept a lot of like those, you know, huge action figures, life size. So people get attracted, they want to try it out. At one point, we had the Thanos helmet. So they wanted to, you know, wear it and pose with it. So a lot of these kind of things.
I'm going to visit your store and check out your merchandise. कैसा है करके. Maybe next time I'll wear one of those branded T-shirts and have conversations with startup founders so that I can look cool on with
You
the
can
program.
be one of us, yes.
थोड़ा modern vibes. All right. Now, even though 90% of your revenue is coming from the D2C channel, I want to understand, why do you still see marketplaces like Amazon as a place to grow? Because from a long-term perspective, I want to understand that marketplace play that you have. And I think your app is also powered by AWS. So tell us more about how they've helped you navigate the highs and lows from the back end. Two-part question: marketplace and AWS.
Right. So the marketplace aspect, right? Amazon accounts for about 10% of our sales. It's been really well for us. In the last 3 years, our marketplaces have grown more than our D2C business, percentage-wise. So that's been very surprising for us. I think it's a mix of two things. One is discoverability. So a lot of people who don't know about us discover us on Amazon and other likes. The second is that a lot of people who've shopped from us, right? They might be shopping for something else on Amazon. They might see an ad and they would just add another product to the cart. So it's a mix of these two things which has helped us.
गंगा में अपना भी हाथ धो.
Exactly, right? So for us, what we do is that, you know, I wouldn't want to say no to that audience. So we don't really heavily market on these platforms because I still want the customer to buy from us where the margins are higher. But if I can get a customer as an impulse buying or from the discoverability point of view, we don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
And coming to the AWS part, right? So my CTO is very excited to work with AWS. So there are so many new things that we want to try out, which Amazon already has. One of the examples is the search, right? Now, I think everyone knows how good the search is. So we are doing a POC, like a proof of concept with AWS, where they would let you try out the search integrated with on our website, try it out for free. And only if it works out for us is when we start actually paying for it. So AWS allows us to do a lot of these POCs with different aspects, which helps the business grow and without actually paying for it, which is a bottleneck for a business our size.
I think for your CTO, we could have a Troy McClure referencing, hey, you might see me in such films like, honey, where's the load balancer? Or, dude, where's my compute? All right. Now, generative AI, her discussion mein, now generative AI is center stage. So it has the potential to help fashion businesses become more productive, go to market faster, serve customers better. ये सब अच्छा PowerPoint वाला reasons है. Non-PowerPoint वाला reasons for Gen AI and what it can do for your business?
So, to be honest, we've not started using it yet. But again, there is a POC that we're doing with AWS. One of the most simplest use cases that we've seen is basically with our mockups and banners and campaign shoots. An insane amount of money, time, etc. goes into preparing for these, right? And Gen AI makes it super easy. I'll give you an example. Let's say if I'm wearing this shirt. Now I've got 10 colors in this shirt. Now if I take a picture of you wearing this, I can actually, without asking you to change 10 times, I could just change it using Gen AI. So that really reduces our budgets and makes the image also as good as
gives you more control as well, right?
Absolutely. And I can change the expression, I could change the surroundings, the backgrounds, and a lot of other things. So it's as good as a new photo without you spending on the location and the model and all of that.
Who knows? Next time एक speaker रहेगा, Alexa will ask you questions and मेरी नौकरी. Let's see if still the physical experience hold. But that's your 15-minute soul-searching exercise on running a startup by walking the talk. Now, let's take this formal conversation to slightly more casual territories with a stopwatch as our sidekick. Onwards to our next segment titled The Accelerator. Quickfire question and answer. Okay? From a cost-benefit perspective of a startup, do's and don'ts of working with influencers and celebrities.
I think I would honestly just have one point here. Just be true to yourself and the brand. What we've seen is that every time we try and just do something for views, it never works.
Achha.
If let's say Hardik Pandya, I'll give his example because he's worked really well for us.
Okay.
He really goes.
He's working well.
for a tough time to make this joke, but yes, I've been getting messages from people about his recent performance.
Maybe you can make money out of it as well, but go ahead.
Right. So, he is actually a guy who dresses like how the kind of stuff that we sell, right? He's seen wearing streetwear outside and he actually genuinely loves our stuff.
Edgy, eh?
Yeah, he's edgy. If I do it with someone else in the cricket team, let's say who doesn't really have that vibe, it won't work. So we realized that...
When I saw Rahul Dravid in Cred, boss, that was...
But that was like a spoof.
Right,
so
you'll have to enter spoof territory.
Correct,
This is
exactly,
native to nature type.
So when we shoot with him, people believe the fact that he's wearing Solso stuff. It doesn't look unnatural. So once when we shot with him, right, he really loved the stuff. So he actually called for it and he wears it himself, even though we don't pay him for it.
Organic.
Yes, exactly. So these kind of things really help. And if we would have done this with someone else, it would have looked fake and the audience sees through the bullshit. So, you can't really fake this anymore.
We'll need to beep that out, but that's fine. I like edgy conversations as well. All right, from superheroes to sitcoms, you've seen it all. But next pop culture phenomenon that you're looking forward to tap?
It's anime. We've been working heavily to get these, Japanese brands onto
Naruto
India.
types.
You're absolutely right. So we already have Naruto. We are now trying...
Dragon Ball Z bhi hai?
Haan, correct.
Okay, Attack and Titan hai?
Wo abhi next hai.
Acha, okay.
Right. So that's really huge.
See kids, I am down with the program. Go ahead.
So we're trying to get these guys to India. And generally, Japanese brands have very strict ways of working.
Requirements. Okay.
Right, exactly. So it's just a matter of them understanding that there's a huge market here, and we want to be the first ones to do that. So we're very excited to now get these guys on board in the next 3 to 4 months.
Crunchyroll is also launching, so
yes,
acha,
exactly.
From a media perspective, that will also give you push and interest. Good. You're used to running operations in a frugal way. We talked about the jhadu pocha phase of the startup. But thoda learnings for our audience, best ways to run your startup cost effectively.
See, I think what normally we do is
मतलब कपड़े don't sukhawfy your kapda on the server types, although it generates.
Right. So see, any company starts with a top-down approach where you're like, hey, I want to hit this revenue. I am okay with a 15 to 20% marketing spend. So let's start with that and then see, do a plus minus 10% and see what happens to the business, right? We actually have a very different approach. We start off with very low capital and then we scale it up. What happens here is that a lot of the costs a lot of ancillary costs that you keep getting added on the way, we start noticing those at a very small stage and keep reducing them when we grow. So this has really helped us, this strategy, you know, where we've grown very slowly. But there is this very strong understanding of how every single operation works. We make it very tight, and that's when you move on to the next stage. I think this, I feel, is something that's missing in the new startups, because there's this urgency to reach a destination, which then creates problems.
It's almost like a gambler entering a casino, saying, let's burn it all.
And it's a race, right? Like, you want to be the first one to get somewhere, and but I do feel that there is space for all of us. You know, we're still at a very nascent stage in the country, and all of us can grow together.
Sab paisa banayenge,
Exactly.
don't worry about it. All right, I like it. That's your 5-minute trial of sizing up opportunities to fit in your startup life, brought to you by Crafting Bharat, a startup guide with Aditya Sharma as our special guest. And of course, before we let Aditya revert to his mild-mannered alter ego, let's get him to answer some questions asked by our audience. It's time for our final segment called The Advisor. ठीक है सर, अभी I don't know, you're not wearing a suit boot types, but strap up for being like sounding very VC advisor-ish types. First question, right, comes from Rahul from HT Media Ventures. Rahul is curious to know, what's your idea of marketing and effective tools to reach out to the audience?
So, you know, like everyone else, right, you have your basic channels like Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram, and followed by Google. So we do the usual spends. Then you also have other retention channels and tools like WhatsApp, where you're sending notifications to people. Clever Tab, you know.
Not good morning messages, I hope.
Absolutely not. So we use all of the usual tools that people do. But I think one area where we go a little overboard is in basically delighting the customer. I'll give you an example. So there is a separate budget that's given to all the departments in the company, saying that, hey, this is your branding budget. What can you do to delight the customer? So in the warehouse, they've been given a budget to make sure that the order reaches in a particular span of time.
This is over and top of their existing budget you give
Exactly,
them.
exactly.
Okay,
So let's say if an order takes about 2 days to reach in Bombay, what we've told them is, I want the customer to get the order on the same day. So we have to spend a little extra money. We have to tighten our ops, but we do something called SDD, which is same day delivery. So if you order before 4 p.m., you will get the order on the same day. So when you get the product on the same day, it really blows your mind, because you just remember ordering it like a few hours back. And a lot of these deliveries actually happen in the 4 to 8 hour span, which is remarkable. So that's what we want to go for. We want to really make sure that we stand out from every other competitor and just generally give a very good experience.
And if Paisa doesn't work, you can sort of modulate your voice and say, look, I'm your founder. All right, our second question comes from Jinal from Jito Angel Networks, and she asks, transitioning from corporate jobs into entrepreneurship, that's a significant leap. Can you share the pivotal moments or experiences that motivated you to make this transition and start Soul Store? कुछ गाली गलौज हुआ बॉस के साथ?
नहीं. I wish I had a very nice.
Any tips to write resignation letters?
I think I just told them, listen, I'm leaving, and they were like, the thing is now, your bosses also eventually are doing a job, right? So
वो भी इंसान है.
वो भी vicariously आपके through जीते हैं. So when you tell them that you're leaving, you're like, अरे finally कोई तो जा रहा है. Someone is doing. Someone is following their dream, you know.
Ooh, so you actually inspired your boss.
Right. So now even just after I left, even they left, and they started something of their own. But I'm not.
The hallmark of every great company. But that phase, tell us about that. You know, this transition that you made, that jump. What was going through your mind? Was it like, you know, when you bungee jump? It's like the first moment is terror. Then as you keep plummeting down, the terror transforms to curiosity. Once you hit the bump and you go up, then the exhilaration comes.
You are absolutely right. That's exactly what happened. You know, initially, you have a lot of people around you also telling you that, like, hey, what are you doing? You know, you studied engineering, you have a job. Why are you leaving to sell t-shirts? What do you even know about it? And so there is.
You had this conversation with your parents?
Yeah, everyone. Like my relatives called me.
मैं t-shirt बेचने वाला हूँ. मैंने लाखों खर्च करके तुझे इंजीनियरिंग सिखाया t-shirt बनाने के लिए.
So yeah, I think I told my parents that, you know, like, I just need food and shelter for the next few years. I'll manage the rest. And they were kind enough to say yes to that. I had a lot of relatives also call me and say that, you know, like, hey, are you sure you want to do this? And
Really?
same for, like, you know, my co-founder.
अच्छा थोड़ा family pressure types.
Yeah, I mean, they were very supportive, to be honest, but thoda to hota hai. Like, you're just worried for the kid, right? So, and
But that's good. At least somebody cares for you enough to say that,
and you're
son, are
23.
you doing it right?
You're 23, so without a plan, you know, because you think you're getting it all right, you have a plan, but people around you know that these guys don't know anything about the product. So we did that, but initially there was a lot of apprehension. But as soon as we got into it, there were a lot of moments where we should have given up. Nothing worked out for us. We had like day one, we had a massive goof up. The launch got delayed. We were supposed to launch, let's say, in 3 months. We ended up launching in 6 months. The first lot of t-shirts that came got completely screwed. But we didn't give up. So, sorry. So
That's
there were,
okay. You can burp and I'll ring the buzzer. Go ahead.
So there were a lot of moments where we should have given up. But to be honest, there was never an option.
Achha.
Our brains didn't even comprehend it. We were like, ye to karna hi hai. This is the only option that we have and we're going to make it happen.
Matlab, in your mind, your mental image is like a superstar with bulging muscle and say, एक बार मैंने decision ले ली, उसके बाद मैं खुद की नहीं सुनता.
Correct.
All these startup founders are action stars. All right. A third question comes from Arjun Nijhawan, an angel investor. Now, Arjun inquires, what's the most challenging aspect of managing a brand like the Sold Store?
I think having
किसकी नौकरी जाने वाली है इसके बाद?
See, there are a lot of challenges, but I think the most difficult now, it's very internal. Because as I said, right, you'll always question yourself. There'll be days where you're like, oh, I think I'm not good enough. Or there are days where you're very confident of something working out, but it doesn't, right? So I think there was this quote in the Rocky, in the movie.
Rocky, matlab the boxer
yes,
wala?
The boxing movie.
Okay.
So it's on the lines where it's not about how hard you can hit, but it's about how hard you can
take the punches.
Exactly, right? So all of us prepare for like, hey, I'm going to be badass and I'm going to do this, right? But there are going to be a lot of occasions where you would be hit really badly. So it's about...
इसी पर t-shirt बना दो, इसको भी बेच दो.
It's about just laying low, surviving, making sure that you're okay and then hitting when you're much stronger.
So in this Darna Mana Hai phase right now, as you move forward, what's the challenge you're now approaching more holistically? What's the punch you're willing to take to see how you can counter punch?
Right. So see, every new experiment that we do, whether it's a category, whether it's a new store, or if it's about hiring newer talent, we're very cognizant of the fact that you can be wrong and you have to account for that. Do not go with the intent that you're always right, or that hey, like if you're wrong, take a step back, see what went wrong and try it out again. One example is that we tried a few categories in the past, they didn't work for us. It wasn't about ego, right? So we took a step back, stopped doing those, and now we'll probably try them again in a few years when we are better and we have more data on that.
Put aside your ego and get real.
Yes.
And take on the challenge. It's very motivational stuff. Quote, I think you can put it in WhatsApp or something instead of good morning. Well, lots of things that we have discussed, very interesting facts and situations and how to handle challenges. But, well, every good thing comes to an end. That's our cue to ride into the sunset for this episode of Crafting Bharat, a startup guide powered by AWS. This podcast is an initiative of NewsReach. Aditya, it was great to speak with you and learn how with great power comes great responsibility. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
And if you are searching for the Chandler to your Joey or Luke to your Leia, you can celebrate your fandom with the folks over at the Soul Store at their stores, app, or website. You can pivot to anything. A big thank you to our audience for tuning in. Do like, share, and subscribe to our channel and take your pick of the best startup stories from India. Till next time, this is your host Gautam Srinivasan signing off. Crafting Bharat, a startup guide powered by AWS, is an initiative of NewsReach in association with VC Circle, produced by HT Smartcast. The director and executive producer of this show is Deepthi Ahuja. The assistant producer is Veda Mohan. The video editor on this show is Puljit Singh. And the audio editor is Amrinder Singh.